more, maybe a week and a half, and we'll hit the peak of the summer season when it comes to the longest day, 21st, and then it's all downhill from there.
Going to the early nights and the late nights, exactly. It's amazing how fast it comes around, actually.
We'll be Christmas shopping soon.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's just get straight on with it. So good morning, everyone, officially. Welcome once again to our special weekly webinar brought to you jointly by LEOcrowdfunding and Property Fortress. So I'm David Johnson, and I am the CEO of a equity property crowdfunding platform. And my co-host, as you know, if you're a regular attendee, is Mr. John Corey of Property Fortress, currently residing in the US of A. So good morning, John. How are you?
Good day, everyone. How is everyone?
Yeah, anything new and strange on the other side of the water in the US of A?
No, I mean, it's all the normal craziness. We're still adjusting house prices, COVID. We got Mr. Biden traveling, so there's 300 people supporting him just for the security detail. You know.
I think about 3 of those are just to help him up the steps of the airplane, are they?
No. It's to deal with all the important work.
Yeah. So yeah, it's amazing how what has changed in the world this last 24 months, especially with COVID. It's a completely game changer for everyone in the world of properties. Definitely going through a very interesting time, which we'll discuss in a few minutes. So special guest today is Mr. Akin Obamakin. So hello, Akin. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it, man. Been following the platform for a while now, so it's good to be a part of this webinar.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Really looking forward to hearing. I think you've got a really fascinating story, you and your team on the podcast. So I really enjoy watching you guys, and I love the way you're doing things, a bit different than other people. So looking forward to letting our attendees sort of understand your involvement in property, and we'll come on to that just in a few minutes. So let's, by way of a couple of updates for attendees on the broadcast today. Delighted to once again announce yet another successful project funded on the platform. This is now up to number 8, I believe. So this was the Planning Uplift project in Scotland. Planning application for up to 9 houses on a 35-acre site in between sort of Edinburgh and Stirling in that region. The projected ROI over 6 months was 40%, and we raised 105,900. It was actually a very short window, John. We only had this open for about, I think it was about 8 or 9 days. So it was a short raise, but we successfully reached the target and a little bit over from 38 different investors, which is good as well.
It did feel sort of quick time-wise. I mean, there have been projects that funded obviously in a day, but when it comes to the campaign being open from the day it opened to the day it closed, for some reason, 9 days felt quicker than funding in a day. I don't know what it was, but.
Yeah, very much. So again, one thing that I quite like on this one was the spread of investors. I know that's something that you always look to, you know, so it's one thing having 2 people jump on with like 50K each, but 38 different people have come on board this one. Some obviously sophisticated high net worth investors, but a lot put in 100, 200 pounds to have this as an education journey and learn more about Planning Uplift.
That's I like it. I like seeing lots of people participate, and opportunity for people to limit their investment and learn. And then as they get more comfortable, they can decide if they want to up their amounts. They also can learn if they want to raise money. Now, this is, you can see it through all dimensions.
Yeah, so absolutely delighted with this one. Obviously, Hitesh and Ray have a previous project that is coming to the end, building 5 houses in Nuneaton. The scaffolding's coming down, the houses are going up for sale with the local estate agent. So this is their next project. So we are looking forward to a successful outcome to the planning application. As well as that, last week we reopened the Citygate House in Leicester project. This is a project we did have on the platform back in March, and rather than wait for the conclusion of the project and the shareholder agreement and the download of funds, etc., the fundraiser decided just to complete himself. He sourced his own funds, the 600K, completed the project. He now owns the building and is now coming back to the crowd to raise the funds to replace that short-term lending. This is 56 apartments from a commercial building, and again, a very interesting project. And you can stay tuned. If you're already an investor on this, then you were invited to an exclusive private webinar with the fundraisers last week. If you weren't able to make that, you'll get a recording of that, and then we'll open it live to everyone over the next week or so. So you can stay tuned for that, but that's the next.
I want to highlight project. This is a build to rent. So if anyone's interested in how that works, or they want to know the economics, the numbers, how to present it, how you might do one of your own, take a look at this one.
Mm-hmm. And we've got 2 new case studies about to go up on the platform, so look out for those. And we're going to have both of them speaking as guests. Dirk Visage is someone, John, that you know. His case study is about to go on, does a lot of work in the planning arena. And then Becky from Smiling Properties, her project's about to go on as well, her case study. And they're going to be our guests over the next couple of weeks. So looking forward to that. So let me hand over now to our special guest today. Akin, do you want to take a few minutes to introduce yourself, your background? We're going to be deep diving into your podcast in a few minutes, so you can just sort of skim over that for now, but really just trying to the attendees understand sort of who are you, your background, and then we'll do our market update, and then we'll get into your podcast. So over to you. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. And yeah, man, like I said before, I've been following the platform for a little while, so really interested in the next couple of months to, dive deeper, invest myself, and introduce my audience to the platform. So it'll be very interesting. I'm excited about that. Yeah, so me, I've been in property probably the last sort of 3 years, 2.5 years, 3 years now. So not terribly long, but I came into it, basically through the strategy rent to rent, which I was doing for the last 3 years. About 1.5 years ago, purchased my first property as well. And in that time as well, I've done a few sort of joint ventures at the same time now, still trying to grow the portfolio at the moment as well. So really early in my journey, but really in love with the world of property. Been educating myself around property probably the last sort of 3-4 years. So spent a good solid year sort of educating myself before I got into the industry. But yeah, right now I work as a property sourcer through my podcast and also through Black Property Network. As well as that, I work as a property manager as well, so sort of managing a portfolio up in Birmingham, and also doing my own joint ventures as well, which I can go into a little bit into as well, but mainly just around sort of single lets, so BRRR, really doing up properties, and also trying to get into commercial properties. So I want to use the platform to kind of learn about that more, but that's sort of my what I'm looking to do in the future as well. So yeah.
I have a question. So what is your background, or what did you do before you came into the property space?
So it was a mix of different things, to be fair. I mean, number one, I'd recently graduated. So I graduated about 2-3 years before I got into property. So I went to university in Birmingham and I studied ICT. So I had a lot of a tech background. That was my background, and I guess it kind of linked into why I'm kind of interested in your platform. Like property and technology and business it's all kind of been, my mix. I think, coming from the generation that I'm in, we love technology. I love it, and I always want to stay, on the pulse of what's happening and what's moving in different industries, as well as property, which is, I think, is I would say the fundamental of business. I wanted to get into property because it's very, I don't know, it just has a lot of fundamental skills and things you can learn from it. So I love that about it.
Cool. And the tech stuff is good. You and I are from the same sort of space.
That's good to know.
Yeah, and I am definitely not from the same sort of space. I have to ask you, are you an Apple user or an Android user?
So I'm an Apple user, yeah. And I did dabble with Android for about a 1.5 years, but yeah, the UI and UX just wasn't for me, so I came back. Yeah.
Got to figure.
We'll just quickly move on then to that conversation. We'll not get in that. I don't want to give John another victory in the conversations about Apple and that. So one thing that I think hit it off straight away when we had our first couple of conversations, quite a few months ago, when you introduced my business partner Aisha Forey and her husband Tony, obviously involved in the Black Property Network, and they connected us and we had some conversations, and I was really struck by your passion for education. So you mentioned you did go on some education. Do you want to just elaborate on that? Did you pay for courses? Did you just read books? How did you educate yourself on property?
Yeah, no, I'm probably from the generation of just graduated from YouTube. I did actually I took a few courses actually, but there was an incident where, or not incident, but there was an occasion where basically I went to a course. It was a free course. I then paid for the after course basically, which was a couple months later, which was quite a lot of money. In that period of time, I told myself I was going to get like a deal, which was like the rent-to-rent deal that I mentioned. So I was able to get one, and I came to the course thinking that I was going to learn more and basically be able to gain a lot more knowledge based on the money I paid and how well the course was known for. But by the time I got to that course, I realized that I actually had got more than a lot of people there. At that time, I was managing a few properties and I got the rent-to-rent, and I was going to get another one. And I realized that at the course, I didn't learn much. So from there, I just dedicated my time to learning stuff myself, reading books, YouTube. And then, I think what I was good at the podcast, it put pressure on myself, right? So I would pick a subject and I'll just have to dive deep. And even if I couldn't crack it myself, I would bring a guest on to help, debunk it or demystify it or explain it properly. And so, through that, and obviously and it stays out there, right? It's recorded, so it doesn't move, so I can always go back to refer to it, and that helps people as well. So that's been helpful.
Yeah, actually, no, I love that. Sometimes it's like, how do you learn to swim? I mean, you can take all the theory courses, you can pay and go and sit in the classroom and learn how to swim and how to do the strokes. You don't really learn to swim until you jump in and start to swim in the water. And properties a little bit like that, where you're going to learn most by actually doing, as opposed to learning by someone telling you what to do. And I think that's one of the benefits of property crowdfunding. I know this is something that John's very passionate about, is that people can, invest in property, but with the motivation and the desire to actually learn more about property, learn more about construction days, learn more about planning uplift, watch a developer through a whole process, see what went wrong, see what went right. I know, John, you're very, very sort of passionate about that avenue to learning.
People learn a lot from being in the deal or being very close to the action. They retain it better. There's also this element with crowdfunding that you can stop feeling like you're just a student, get out there and do something, in the sense that for £100, you're an investor. And you can take £1,000, which you might have spent for a course, and instead of spending in the course and ending up with some knowledge in a book or whatever, you end up with 10 investments at £100 each. So now you have 10 parallel opportunities to learn something. It's not the same when you invest £100 as being in the trenches, in the mud, doing your own project. But frankly, for most investors, don't jump into that directly. You need to move through the learning curve. You need to get some experience. Start with something you get your head around, or by doing it through crowdfunding or JV, whatever you want to call it, you're actually leveraging the skills of the other people who may be much further down the road than you and know a lot more. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so at this point, Aki, I'm usually just spend a minute or two on something that's sort of big in the news this week. This is like Groundhog Day, because almost every week in the last couple of months, it's been like all the articles and the blogs and the main sources of information are just continually talking about market is just continuing to rise. Market on fire is one there from the Guardian. Sellers overpriced property by 21% as the COVID boom continues. What's your sense? You're maybe more on the ground perhaps than myself and John. What's your sense actually out on the ground trying to buy deals, sell properties, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, for any buyer at the moment, it's been incredibly tough. You really need to be on the ground and be ready to kind of move quickly. Obviously, in some occasions, I'm trying to purchase for myself. So there's 1 or 2 properties I'm going for myself, and there's also ones I'm looking for investors. And when it comes to my investors, I'm telling them that you need to be really ready. Make sure you've got your mortgage in principle. Make sure you've got proof of funds, an ID ready to send me, and you're prepared to maybe not even view the property. In some cases, there's been times where I've helped investors purchase properties and they've never seen the property before. I've sent them videos, comprehensive videos, and I've just have to tell them, look, you're not going to get the time to come down. What we can do is get offer accepted and get you down after, but you need to be prepared to move very quickly. So yeah, I'm seeing on ground the competition's crazy. In different cities, it's even more crazy. I think in Liverpool, it's even more hot than it is in Birmingham, for example. But it's still extremely hot in Birmingham. So yeah, it's just crazy at the moment. But it's exciting, I guess. It's frustrating as well. But it's part of, I guess, the cycles. I've never experienced stuff like this before, so it's part of my experience. Yeah.
Actually, this type of growth, most people have never experienced. So you're right there with the rest of us. It's quite rare for prices to go up at these sorts of spikes. Maybe once in 100 years you'd see this. It's very unlikely. I was just thinking, like, how are people paying for this? Because mortgage providers are they're going to look at the last 3 to 6 months for comps. Well, this type of spike is very difficult to sort of price in. So do these people put bigger deposits or something? Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends. I think for lenders, I found different situations where they're demanding more of higher deposits based on external reasons, maybe people going on furlough and obviously the market in general as well.
Yeah.
But I think that lenders are being a bit more stricter as well in terms of the sort of projects they like, you're going for. They like standard buy to let. Some of them are not willing to come out of their scope of lending basically to lend as well. So it's just getting a bit more stricter, I guess. But at the same time, people are still purchasing every day. So I guess everyone's finding a way. Brokers are doing what they need to do to get deals over the line. So can't complain really. Yeah.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Okay, that was very, very useful just to get your take on what's happening out there. Okay, so Property Strategist podcast. Was really intrigued. It's yourself and a couple of friends. But I'll let you sort of introduce it. So, what exactly is this podcast? And I suppose the first question is, why did you decide to do this?
Yeah, so the Property Strategist podcast is a property podcast where we explain in quote unquote complicated property terms and jargons, and we break it down, make it simple. As well as that, we share part of our journey and we invite guests to share their stories as well. So, the guests and the listeners gets to kind of get an idea of, what we're doing day to day, as well as we speak to first-time buyers around these, certain terms, stuff like shared ownership and terms like that. And then we also invite, more professional, well-established property investors to come down, developers to come and tell them, to talk about their journeys, talk about their projects and stuff like that. So you just guys get a wide overview of the property market and what's going on, and things that are happening basically. And you just get to hear a lot of stuff you don't really get to in school, university. So it's been quite good for the listeners, yeah.
What's your demographic, your listeners? What's their sort of age profile?
So age profile ranges from all the way from 18 to I would say around 35. I would say the main listeners are in the middle. So I would say probably more 25 to like 30, 33, 34. 25 to 34, I would say is the main listener group. But we try to throw out webinars and content that kind of targets the different groups. So we'll do something for the 18 to 21 year olds, and then we'll do something for like the 25 to 30 year olds, and then we'll do something for like the 35 year olds. So we try to mix it up so get everyone involved, and just try to keep everyone, involved basically and educated on what's going on.
Yeah, I'm curious on a podcast for property, because property tends to be a sort of local thing. Do you have any demographics as to whether you have a lot of overseas or out of the country or non-UK listeners?
Yeah, so funny enough, that wasn't an intention, but majority of our listeners are from the UK. Majority actually from sort of, I would say from like London, Birmingham, and then they're sort of scattered all over the UK and other areas as well. But then, yeah, we have got a few listeners from abroad. I don't really know why, because our information is kind of targeted towards the UK
Exactly.
property market. But I guess it's just interesting to listen in and just hear what we have to say, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah, it could be that people just like listen to you and they're learning things. It might be overseas individuals who, for some reason, have a connection to the UK or want to invest in the UK. But it is fascinating sometimes when you dig into the data and say, "Wow, where are people coming from?"
Yeah. I love data, and I love to look at what's happening with the data and where people are listening, and what episodes people are listening to most, etc. Which is why I'll get into the book, but that's what inspired the book. We realized that a lot of people are confused about the process of buying a house, so we thought it was important to write in the book. But yeah, I love data, and I love seeing where people are listening from and what they're listening, what episodes they're listening to. So that's been interesting. Yeah,
I think you and John are going to become soulmates when it comes to data analysis and
computers, data. What can I say? Property.
Apple users.
Apple user.
Yeah, when it comes to podcasts, I suppose one of the big questions, because there's lots of podcasts out there, and I suppose one of the big questions is sort of listeners on a monthly basis, roughly what would tune in, and then like how many listens have you had in total? You're only about 2.5 years old, so still very, very new. But what's your numbers like?
Yeah, so I'll start by saying, number one, our aim wasn't actually to do numbers. That wasn't the intention. Our intention was that we were just going to document our journey for the next 5 to 10 years, and whoever wanted to listen to it would listen to it, and they wouldn't feel like we were hiding it. At a certain point, I'm looking to put ourselves out there and really show what we're getting up to. But I just didn't want it to be a thing of we were just kind of hogging this information, but we were actually just putting it out there freely for people to grasp as well. And doing our own way as well. We do it in a really fun way. Put music in there. We just be ourselves basically. But yeah, in terms of the numbers, we've had about altogether on the different platforms, probably around sort of 75k plus listeners on the podcast, which is, for me, it's okay. I'm looking to grow that rapidly, so that's not a big number for me. But I think it's been good so far as a foundation, just to see that the concept works. People do want to listen. In terms of monthly, we have around 2k, I would say. There's been months where it's gone up higher to 2.5k, lower to 1,500, but right now steady at that 2k listeners a month, which is pretty good as well. People definitely get messages. We get messages almost every day saying thank you for helping us get our first property. Thank you for helping with this issue or that issue. Again, didn't really expect that. It was more just to kind of talk about what we're going through, but it seems to be useful. So we're really making plans now to try and really take it to the next level. And obviously, want to make sure our own property journeys align with what we're talking about as well. So which is why we sometimes go a bit quiet to try and get some more experience before we come back again. But I think our listeners know that about us, that we want to be authentic and not just regurgitate what we're hearing online. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so you mentioned your book. So that came about because people were just asking you the basics of buying a house. Particularly, I think it's really fascinating that you aim for that younger age group. I have a son, he's 22 years old. I mean, when I was 22, the thought of even investing in property didn't even enter my head until I was much older. You rented a property at that stage, before getting married. My son Joshua, like 22-year-old, he's been investing in the stock market, small amounts of money, but I think he's invested now in like 4 or 5 projects through crowdfunding. Like he's 22-year-old. I mean, that's just so strange to us older guys. So that's an interesting demographic. I think it's brilliant that you're targeting them, because obviously they are the future. They're the ones who are going to be getting the big jobs in 4, 5, 6 years time after university, disposable income. So the book, the motivation then was to just explain how to buy a property. Is that right? Yeah.
So obviously, we put out a podcast episode around how to buy a house, and that one it was the best episode we had at the time. And we had loads of people, messaging us in, basically saying, so what is the process like? What is literally the A, B, C, D process of buying a house? And so, yeah, we took it upon ourselves. This is just before the lockdown come into effect. So we were not thinking about writing a book at all. We were just going to carry on with our goals, our property goals for the year. But then Corona came and lockdown came, and then we realized we couldn't go out and do the stuff we wanted to do. So we said, let's spend this time to write this book that everyone wants. So yeah, literally the book is only 38 pages, but it's a really concise book on like A, B, C, D, without the jargon, you know, how to buy a house, going through the process, so that the younger people that want to, you know, maybe they're in university, maybe not ready to buy a house, but they're getting themselves ready, you know, they can have a look at it, and it goes through literally every step in a really simple way. So like you said, our demographic, for whatever reason, you know, we're very interested in just investing early and getting that knowledge early. And so funnily enough, I think that the target market, though they don't have loads of money, what they do have is just a thirst for knowledge. And so we find clever ways to where we can kind of, you know, match that together, right? Our book is only £8 in Amazon, but they get a lot of value from it, and then we obviously get to make a bit of money from it as well. So yeah, I think it's been really helpful for them. People have bought houses using it, so just really grateful. Yeah, really grateful for it.
Brilliant, brilliant. So who are your co-hosts on this? There's obviously a group of you. Are they friends from the past, or how did you form this sort of core group?
Yeah, so in that picture, there's actually 4 of us, but there's only 3 of us. The other guy, he's almost like a hidden 4th member. But yeah, so there's 3 of us. There's me, myself, then there's my cousin who's in the green in the picture, who's a few years older than me. Yeah, so he's been investing for a few years more than me. His journey ties into mine in terms of like when he bought his first property. I was there. I was at university. It's a long story, but I was based at university in Birmingham. He asked me to go do the viewing. I went there. All of a sudden, we're buying a property. Months later, my brother did the same thing. It was just a whole story anyway. But essentially, that's my older cousin who invests, and he has his own, I guess, expertise in property. Doing his own sort of projects. I have my own expertise, and then his best friend, who is Kenny, who's the other guy on the other side of the table. They were part of the business together, rent-to-rent business, and kind of joint ventures on 1 or 2 purchases. And so me coming down to Birmingham and me being interested in seeing what they're doing and doing my own journey, I was like, why don't we come together and just document this stuff? And then it kind of just turned out. It just kind of came into what it is today, really. It was just firstly just us meeting up to talk and record it. And then after that, we kind of added a name to it. And then before you know it, people were listening to it. So then it kind of became a thing. And then, basically my cousin and then his best friend, who's become my friend, we're together to do this.
Yeah, no, that's really good. So last question for me before I wrap up, although if John's one more question, we can squeeze that in. But what's the future hold? I know we had some conversations sort of offline on that. So where are you looking to expand, and how do you see this sort of property strategist podcast like in 2 years, 3 years time? How do you want to look?
Yeah. I mean, again, lucky enough or thankfully enough, I think podcasts have become a good thing. Like again, that wasn't really the thing when we started it. It wasn't really the thing that is right now. So we've seen an opportunity with podcasts to maybe to definitely grow that. Again, our demographic, because we're in it, they relate to us very well. So yeah, the idea is just to keep growing the podcast and to keep churning out, you know, high value, good information for the listeners, number 1. Number 2, we want to kind of diversify the content, make it more visual. So we're going to be on places like TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube, showing the visual stuff, you know, going down to the, you know, to project, for example, and showing with a developer side by side, this is what happens. And I think people will like that. Also maybe 1 or 2 more books. I don't know about the book stuff, but maybe there might be 1 or 2 books in the next couple of years, but I think that one is all right for now. We want to do events, so we're talking to a few universities about doing some events at the universities, and obviously our own property journeys. You know, we are thankfully really, you know, actually making really good moves. One of our partners just picked up his first commercial residential deal, and I'm going to be picking up 1 or 2 buy-to-lets, one of them being hopefully a BRRR deal this year as well. So, you know, making sure we stay on top of that. You know, we're not trying to say, well, we are saying we're going to be very wealthy in the future, but we're saying that, you know, that might take 10, 15 years, but we're going to just be open about our journey, show the journey, and then hopefully people gravitate to that and, just grow the platform basically. So
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. No, absolutely fantastic. So John,
sorry, last thing is obviously link up with Leo crowdfunding as well, of course. I'm really passionate about prop tech, so that's why when I came across your platform, you know, it was either REITs or crowdfunding that I was looking to go down. REITs is I feel like because of the legislation and all the rules around it, might not be the best choice, but Leo crowdfunding and crowdfunding platforms in general, I think match up nicely with what we're doing. People get to get the educational side, as well as they don't have huge amounts of money. So, you know, even if they're coming to spend £1,000 or £500, I think it's worth it, because it's something I'm looking to start doing. So yeah, that's it, as I would say.
Speaking of REITs, and also this idea of £1,000 or £500. So £500, people could possibly invest in 5 separate deals. And if you think about what is a REIT, it's a lot of investors coming together, and there's some other benefits and structures. But you're right, it's quite expensive to get off the ground, where you can get one deal off the ground in crowdfunding and build your track record, build your history, build your investor base. And then if you want to morph into a REIT down the road, you now have a case study or a history or a group of people who are willing to back you. So it makes for an easier transition.
Exactly. A lot of the time, our listeners already understand property because of the platform as well. They have a good grasp of the basic concepts as well. So the transition, I think, is really good, as opposed to maybe going away and learning about stocks, where, you know, you're learning how to learn about that individual company, and you're not really sure of what you're doing. You're kind of gambling a bit. So yeah, I think there's a good match there. And obviously, I think there'll be more talks on how we can, you know, match it up properly. But I'm excited about that.
No, obviously fantastic. And this leads nicely into sort of the concluding couple of slides, because at last, I'm delighted to be able to announce today, officially and formally, that we do have our new affiliate program approved and in place. So this will take it'll be in two separate parts. It'll be on the right-hand side of the screen, the introducers. This is for people who perhaps have maybe some high net worth clients, or people with sort of sophisticated investors that have larger sums, and we'll be able to offer 1% of invested amounts to those introducers. There's paperwork that needs done and training that needs done before they can officially do that. On the left-hand side, and this obviously feeds in nicely to what you were saying, Mackin, this refer a friend, and that is where someone like a podcast, which I know we're going to do with you, any of your listeners who come on our platform, who then invest as little as £100, we're actually prepared to give you, the introducer, £50 to your e-wallet. The expectation is that obviously that will be invested in deals on the platform, but that allows you to obviously benefit from referring people to the platform. And then I know you're looking to do maybe some of your own deals. So you bring your own deals to the platform, you can talk about them on your podcast. If people decide to invest, well, it's almost like a double win for you. So next week's broadcast, we will be explaining this in detail. So we're going to be talking about the affiliate program. We're going to be talking about the refer a friend in detail, how it works, and also then the introducer side. So that's certainly going to be very exciting. So we switched to Clubhouse now at 11 o'clock. Akin is actually on Clubhouse. Now, I know you're going to be in the car traveling to London, but you're going to tune in and where you can participate in our discussion. I think we can definitely deep dive a little bit into the demographics, the generation rent people, and why crowdfunding works for them, as well as this whole idea of referring a friend and building the network through that. So it's 11 o'clock. You can join in, Akin, on that, and John and I and our COO, Tony Allner, host that. And it's been really good, John. We've had, listen, some weeks there's 30 or 40, some weeks, single figures, just depends. But the engagement with people has been, I think, really interesting. We've met some fantastic people, and it's been really beneficial.
Well, I like to think of it as a podcast where the audience can actually take part. So it's almost like a radio talk show where people from the audience can raise questions. So it can go off in any direction that someone in the audience wants to take it.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is today's focus, by the way?
Sorry, say again?
What did you say today's focus is for the Clubhouse?
With Akin joining us, we'll do that generation rent, younger generation, why they should create wealth through property crowdfunding, and then we can also do just a bit on the refer a friend, how you can generate wealth by referring others to the platform. So
yeah, just getting on the property ladder is generation rent. Take your first step.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what we'll kind of focus on initially, and then obviously people come up and ask questions and can take us off on a tangent after that. So if anyone does want to get in touch with John or myself, we can deep dive into different aspects of property provide some consultancy. So please feel free to reach out to John via LinkedIn or social media. And there's my details there on the screen. So that is us for today. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed that. It was brilliant to sort of hearing your passion. I love this idea of you're not in it to be a millionaire overnight. It's a journey you're on, and you're inviting people sort of to be on the journey with you. It's like a fly on the wall documentary of you and your friends as you build your wealth through property. I think that's fantastic and very beneficial. So I really do appreciate you coming on, and look forward to working with you more in the future.
Yeah, nice to meet you, John, as well, and thank you for having me as well. Appreciate it, man.
Fantastic. Okay, well, call it end there. See anyone who can't join us, 11 a.m. Join us in Clubhouse. All the best, everyone. Have a great day. Talk to you all soon.